This video is sponsored by PageProof.
Hey there, creative friends. I'm Khara Plicanic, and welcome to Illustrator, where we are going to take a look at working with gradients. So I've got a number of examples here to show you. To get started, I'm going to select my object and come over to the toolbar where I can click to select the gradient tool or just press the letter G for gradient. So far, nothing's happening, but if we click on our object, we will see a default gradient get applied. It's not terribly exciting, it's just black and white. But there are a number of ways we can edit this. What we see here is two color stops. So this is our white color stop and this is our black color stop. In the middle, we have the midpoint, so we can adjust where that blend is going to happen. We can also click and drag to move the color stops. And you'll notice the line itself can also be moved. So if you actually click on the line, you can drag it around to reposition it. And on one end, we have a little circle dot. This also lets us reposition it. On the other end, we have a square. And this is the side that you can click and drag to stretch the whole gradient out or shrink it down. And if you hover in just the right place, you'll get this cursor, which lets you rotate the gradient as well. And let's talk about how we can put some more exciting colors on here. So one way to change the color stops is to just double click, and then you can pick a new color. You can dial in a new color. You can come over to your swatches and just click the swatch that you want to use. That's one way to do it. But another way to work, if I select this swatch right here, is to just click with this little color stop selected. I can choose the swatch that I want to replace it with from the swatches panel. So let's drag these to the end here. So let's say we want to add some additional colors to this. Then we want to click not on the line, but either just above or below where you see this arrow with the little plus. So I'm going to click 1, 2, 3 times to add 3 more color stops. And I'll select this first one. We'll make it this color. Second one here. And this one we'll make blue. All right. So now we have this beautiful looking fish. And maybe I want to adjust the distribution of these color stops. So that looks great. If we decide we want to get rid of any of these stops, all you have to do is click and pluck it away and it's gone. If we decide we are in love with our gradient and we want to keep it now, we can just go to our swatches panel and click to add a new swatch, or come up here to the panel menu and choose new swatch. Because I've got all my different swatches viewed right here, it just knows that this is a gradient swatch. So I'm just going to call it Happy Gradient. And we can see that it gets added right here. So let's say we want to apply the same gradient to this shape. I'm going to click to select this with my selection tool. And in the swatches panel, I'll click to apply my gradient. If I want to change it from a linear gradient to a radial gradient, I can come up here in the control panel and switch from linear to radial by just clicking this middle option right here. And if I don't like how that looks, I'm going to press G for my gradient tool. And here we see our little editor where we can stretch this out and make it gentler if we want. Maybe we want to reposition it, say up here. This little guy lets us rotate it if you're clicked in just the right spot. And we can stretch this out maybe like so. And maybe on the fly, I decide this is just too many colors. We can just pluck them off. And if we decide we like this swatch, we can again make a new swatch and we'll call this one Cotton Candy. So that's a look at a linear gradient and a radial gradient. Next, let's take a look at freeform gradients. With the gradient tool selected, in the control panel, click to select freeform gradient. From here, you can choose between working with points or lines. Let's take a look at points first. From here, you could just click to add points to this object. I'm going to put 1 in the middle. So I have a total of 5 points. To change the colors assigned to the points, we can click to select one and then choose the color we want to replace it with. So maybe I'll make this point pink, this one yellow, this one a lighter pink, and this middle one this cream colored. From here, we can click to move any of these around. You can see it's all live and editable. We could enlarge the influence of any of these points. And if we have an extra point or we decide we want to get rid of any of these, all we need to do is click and drag it out of the shape, and when we let go, it disappears. Next, let's take a look at working with a freeform gradient that uses lines instead of points. Unlike a regular linear gradient, the color stops in a freeform gradient using lines don't have to be straight. They can be curved. So I've got my freeform gradient selected, and I'm going to switch from points to lines, and then I can come right into this shape and just start clicking. And you'll notice that as I do, I'm basically drawing with the curvature tool. And once I've got the number of points that I want, I can stop adding new points by pressing the escape key. And from here, like you would expect, you can select a point and add a color to it or change the color applied. And just like always, if we have an extra color stop, to get rid of it, we can just click and drag it out, and when we let go, it disappears. So then we can continue moving these things around, editing them as needed to get the effect we're looking for. And finally, let's take a look at how we can apply a single gradient across multiple objects. So here I have a silhouette comprised of 2 pieces. We have this piece by herself, and I have this piece, which is a compound path that forms all of these different butterflies. If we select both, and let's say grab the eyedropper tool and sample the gradient that I've got right here, you can see that each object has its own instance of the gradient. So we have one gradient here to here, and a second gradient that starts with this butterfly and goes across here. If I press G for the gradient tool, you can see that each object has its own gradient editor. So that means we could come in here and adjust just this gradient. Again, sometimes it's tricky to grab the endpoint if the stop is too close to it. So I find that I have to kind of move these a little bit to be able to reach the end. Maybe we want to make this one at a diagonal. So we could edit these two things separately. But what if we want a single gradient to go across both objects? Then we just make sure they're both selected, and with our gradient tool, draw across. You'll see that we still have 2 gradient editors, and if we don't mess with them, then they're going to be the same gradient across both pieces. But if you wanted to tweak one, you can grab one of these or the other, and then you can actually adjust the individual gradients if you need to. So you can see it's really, really flexible and powerful. So that's a look at working with a simple linear gradient, a radial gradient, a freeform gradient using points, and a freeform gradient using lines. You also learned how to apply a single gradient across multiple objects and edit them as needed. I hope this video inspires you to have fun and make cool things with gradients. I'm Khara Plicanic, and until next time, happy gradient making.
Well, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to give it a like and subscribe to our channel. And for thousands more how-to articles and tutorials, visit our website, creativepro.com, and become a member today. Thanks for learning with us.